Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Barbell. Last week we talked about squatting and bracing and how we could be the most effective with that through our setup. Today we're going to talk about the same thing but with the deadlift. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the top-down deadlift setup and how all of that, the importance of that is going to make our brace a whole lot better, whether it's conventional or sumo. So I'm going to go into both. I'm going to look at the setup for both conventional and sumo. I'll go through a little bit of my workout to see the emphasis that I'm putting on different things. But a lot of my other videos have been about leg pressure, what we're doing with the upper back as far as letting the arms hang, protraction in the shoulders, and all of those kind of things, pulling slack. But like I said in the last video, I guess I've been taking for granted that the bracing mechanics were totally intact. So we're going to go back into that almost starting at square one, and then we can build everything else around it. So one of the first things that has to be in place for any of these things to make sense is going to be hinge mechanics. So if you don't understand the hinge, what's happening is that the hinge is going to be defined as the unlocking at the hips, but that your rib cage and your pelvis stay neutral, stay in that connected position that we've been working on with everything else. So when you're doing this, a couple of the cues, I think the most common cue is going to be the lasso around your waist and your hips are getting pulled backwards. That one makes sense. I think the one that's more practical and the one that clicks for more people is that maybe your hands are full of groceries and you're trying to close the car door behind you. I think that one makes the most sense. What's important here is everything else. We're talking about bracing, that your rib cage stays neutral in regards to your pelvis. The most common thing that happens that when people hinge is that the rib cage comes up, the pelvis dumps forward into that anterior tilt, and we get that big arch position, and then we never end up getting tight in the bottom of the deadlift. So if we don't do that well, then none of this will happen. So the big thing is that we have to stay neutral. We're not trying to get into a big arched back position. We have to stay connected. So we need to practice that hinge. If you're doing that well, then good, we can move on. Otherwise, you need to work on hinging and making sure that everything is staying good. Some of the main points with this is that shoulders stay on top of your feet. The hips are where most of the action is happening. You can see in the video that it's hips moving back and forth more so than my shoulders moving back and forth. The shoulders move some, but they really stay stacked on top of the feet where the center of mass stays the whole time. So in all the other videos, we're going to see that happening. The conventional and sumo both start with a hinge, and it has to happen there. So in the setups, we'll start with conventional. The same thing is going to be happening in both, but we'll use this one because it uses that hinge a little bit more closely. So what we'll see is that before I even start the hinge, I'm actually feeling the brace. I've talked in other videos. We want the arms hang long. We want that part to be relaxed. I think those things go in. They're additive to making sure that the brace is well done here. So I'm putting pressure. I'm actually breathing. I'm doing Valsalva. I'm doing all of those things so that I have enough pressure, especially when I get down to the bottom. One of the main things that happens, particularly with conventional, is that people don't have enough space. Your legs are closed, your body's on top of your legs, your arms kind of are having to wrap around in order to reach the bar, and so people run out of room in order that they can't brace well, and then you're never going to find that neutral back again. So we have to do that up top. You can see that I'm putting an emphasis on rib cage down and expanding out and down, imagining I have a belt on and expanding into that belt. From there, then it's just that hinge. I just hinge back. From practice, whether it's conventional or sumo, I should have a pretty good idea of what the angle of my trunk is going to be. So I tell people to hinge to that position, and then from there we just drop straight down to the bar. Other videos I've talked about reaching over the bar. I stop right before where my hands are in contact with the bar, and then I get the extra motion from my upper back. That's all we need to do here is we just need to hinge, have that brace, and then the last step is just going to be reaching for the bar and then upper back tightness, and then we push and go. So if we get the brace well done, then everything else connects. The only difference between the conventional and the sumo is going to be the amount of hinge. Conventional obviously will have more. We'll see in the sumo, I obviously still start with the hinge, and then I just unlock my knees and drop down and do the same mechanics. So as far as differences between the two, I know I've had people ask me to make more conventional videos, but especially with the cueing that I'm using, most of them are going to overlap very, very closely. So whether the programming might be different, some of the emphasis might be a little bit different, but the major points can be applied to both. So if we look at it that way, if we just look at what I'm doing as far as getting set up, both of them will act the same. I'm bracing, I'm hinging, and then the rest of it is just using my legs to find the rest of the position. So as we go through the rest of this workout here, you can see that nothing changes. I'm using the same emphasis through everything that I'm doing. All of from the very first warm-up that I did all the way up, it's still that same bracing mechanic so that when I get to the top, everything feels familiar. So from the different angles, we can see what's happening, especially from the side, we can see that initial hinge that I'm getting to is going to be really similar to the position I'm actually pulling from. As you get better with this, what we see in the video here is that I'm picking my hips up a little bit. That just comes with practice. I think it's smart. It's a good process for people to initially just do almost a grip and rip. Guys like Brett Gibbs, it looks like he's just doing a grip and rip, but I think he's following exactly all of these rules where he's bracing at the top. We can see the emphasis put there, and then he hinges, drops down, and pulls. Everything that I just said is something he does. Christoph Wierzbicki in the 93s and now in the 105s does exactly the same thing with his deadlift. So those are both guys who are very strong, very effective. They're doing these things with the grip and rip. But that grip and rip sounds like they're not putting as much thought into it as they really are. So everything that they're doing is thoughtful. We can be thoughtful. And then once you get confident with it, then you can add in the little, like what I do, raising my hips. That just allows me a little bit more space to rebreathe into my belt, but I'm still maintaining pressure throughout. So hopefully that video is helpful. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what other videos you want me to make. I have a pretty good list of videos that I'm planning on making for the channel, but if you have any specific questions, any things that you need me to elaborate on, I'm happy to do those. So leave me a comment, send me a DM on Instagram, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. So thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.